Today, we're going to discuss a subject that tends to generate a good amount of interest: emotional abuse in marriage. Question: My marriage has been very difficult almost from the beginning. Recently, I learned about verbal and emotional abuse, and I suspect I might be in such a relationship. But how can I know if my husband is emotionally abusive? Maybe he's just challenging. Now, in truth, emotional abuse can be challenging to identify because it's often subtle and not as obvious as physical abuse. While all relationships experience arguments and moments where people say things they regret, healthy conflicts are usually focused on resolving a specific issue, such as finances, responsibilities, family dynamics, etc. Emotional and verbal abuse, however, go beyond normal conflict. An emotional abuser often seeks to control or hurt their partner. They may try to make their spouse feel inferior as a way to insert dominance. This dynamic, it's not about resolving an issue, it's about power. While this is a common indicator of emotional abuse, there's other signs that can help distinguish between normal marital disagreements and abuse. For example, signs of emotional abuse may include low self-esteem or emotional instability, withdrawal from social connections, difficulty trusting others, underachievement or lack of confidence, increased anxiety or depression, substance abuse, fearfulness or a sense of dread when interacting with the abuser, feeling emotionally drained from trying to keep their partner happy. However, it's also important to point out parenthetically that when there is marital conflict, it's common for spouses to label one another selfish, self-centered, controlling, imbalanced, narcissistic, crazy, for example. However, while labels can have value, they need to be applied with caution. Labels have a tendency to make us believe a person can't change. The person becomes the label. In addition, we see the label and not the whole person. For example, there are many behaviors, influences, history. Emotional abuse is a label that's become to be used more and more frequently. However, it's essential to realize that it's distinct from other forms of marital conflict. Emotional abuse is exemplified by consistent behavior such as controlling, manipulating, subjugating, and hurting the other person. Heated arguments and yelling do not, in and of themselves, equate to emotional abuse. Yet, in the case where it is emotional abuse, when an abuser acknowledges their behavior and is genuinely willing to change, therapy can sometimes be effective. However, many abusers deny their behavior, often portraying themselves as the victim. In some cases, they may even convince a therapist and even themselves that the real problem lies with their partner. As a result, treatment usually focuses on empowering the victim to rebuild their confidence, establish healthy boundaries, and recognize what a healthy relationship looks like. Therapy can teach skills such as assertiveness, boundary setting, and making positive, healthy decisions. Also, it's very important to remember that you are not at fault. The Torah teaches that a prisoner cannot free himself from prison. Seeking guidance is vital to understanding your situation, uncovering your inner strengths, and moving forward to build a healthy, fulfilling, and normal life. And most importantly, Hashem grants each person a strength to overcome their challenges. As it's written, Hashem does not make unreasonable demands of his creations. While not everyone may have the same inner strength to face such a challenge, Hashem has specifically given you the power to do so, and not just to endure, but to overcome it, emerging stronger, more resilient, and even greater than before. As Chassidus teaches, every descent is for the sake of a greater ascent.